All right, we're live. Silver Doctor is live on air Monday morning, 11/11/2019. And so, welcome to the live stream, everybody. Let this thing let it load up a little bit on my side. Okay, there we go. I see myself. So, with that being the case, we're live. Looking forward to having some good back and forth this Monday afternoon. My name is Mike, the co-host, along with better half over here, Mr. Half Dollar. Mr. Half Dollar, how you doing this afternoon?
Doing good today, Mike. Happy Monday to you. Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans. So that'll be something interesting to talk about as a little rant there that I like to talk about every year around Veterans Day. But anyway, no need to get into that right now, though.
All right, good deal. So it's coming. And so, as always, give it a second before we get going on today's subject matters. And as always, if you guys have any thoughts or anything you want to bring up in the discussion, feel free to let us know in the chat or give us a call, 567-336-0844, and we should be good to go. So let's go to the chat and see who's tuning in thus far and acknowledge their presence and thank them for being here. Let me pop this out here. All right, what we got so far? Let me see here. It's taking time to load. Mr. Half-Dollar, if you want to go ahead and jump in and see some names, go ahead, feel free to do so.
Yep, we got Shane Lackey, we got Jeff Loeb, we got Ryan Faulkner, we got Bryant Jenkin, we got Mason Tricks, Sam Deacon, Jessel, we got Big Bubs, we got John Michael Karma, and he's saying that there's 2 inches of snow in Detroit right now, so I guess it's wintertime already, Mike.
Yes, it is. It is officially wintertime. Yeah, man, that snow was. I looked out the window. It was not pretty. Got in the car. It is not pretty, but it is what it is. It's Michigan, man, and so it's to be expected. So
that's interesting. There's some freezing rain where I am, so yeah, it's kind of like getting everywhere right now. They're not kidding about this Arctic blast.
Yeah, what happened to the warming, man? I could use some global warming right now. And so, speaking of which, I'm going to get on this. I want to talk about that as well. So, okay, but as always, people, if you got any questions or thoughts, feel free to let us know, and we'll definitely address it. So, Mr. Half Dollar, what's in your mind this afternoon? Where do you want to take this conversation first?
Well, I want to start off with one of my favorite topics, Mike.
Okay,
and one of my favorite topics is the topic of inflation and hyperinflation and just money printing in general.
Yeah.
And I'm going to send you this link here. This is just an article that I wrote yesterday. Do you remember a few weeks ago when we were talking about this record whiskey bottle that sold for like $1.9 million?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like to do this thing where I just pick apart examples, right? And I talk about examples of real-time, real-world hyperinflation.
Yeah.
And here's the latest example right here. So this crab sold last week in Japan. You know, they're big on their crabs in Japan. They like crabs over there, I guess. Yeah. Enough to pay the most for them ever. And this crab sold for $46,000, Mike.
Must be some good crab. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. It's 1.2 kilos. It's like 2.5 pounds. You know, and I think about like chicken, right? Like half of that is bone. Well, half of the crab, you know, you can't even probably eat anyway, right?
Right.
And it's funny because, like, you know, the way that it was talked about, obviously it was translated into English and stuff, but it was like, oh, it's got long legs, fat, solid meat, and creamy, rich innards. And I'm like, oh, man, that sounds gross in and of itself. But so there's this crab, right? That sold for $46,000.
Yeah.
Here's where I want to go with that, right? There's a few things. First of all, right, last year it broke a record, right? So last year, the record was 18,000. So think about this, Mike. Not only do we break the record again this year, but the record was broken by almost like 3 times as much, right? So this, like, you know, we keep pointing to all these signs. And here's what I want to talk about when I talk about it starts at the periphery and ends at the cores. I often highlight the exaggerated, you know, crazy $1.9 million bottles of whiskey or $46,000 crabs because it proves a point, right? Hyperinflation starts at the top and it starts at the bottom. We see it at the top. We see it with these record paintings that go for record amounts. We see it with this vintage wine and this vintage whiskey. We see it just last week with this $46,000 crab. It also starts at the bottom. I don't know if you ever go into the Dollar General. I don't go into a Dollar General that much. We used to have one right beside my house, but I remember seeing in there. Have you ever seen this in any store? Not even really a Dollar General, but they, you know, I used to think it was weird 20 years ago when I was in Mexico because people used to buy a little, you know, laundry detergent in little Ziploc bags in the market. I was like, huh, that's weird. in Dollar General, I have seen little tiny bags of laundry detergent locked up in glass cases. Right. And it's not because it's like this Tide Pod thing where they're like eating Tide Pods. No, this is like because they're worried about people stealing little teeny tiny bags of laundry detergent from Dollar General. Right. Here's another thing. So that's the low end. Mm-hmm. That's where it's starting at the low end. Another thing, and you see this traveling all over the world, but you don't see it so much in the States. At least I don't think you do. Mm-hmm. I'm not a smoker, so I don't know. But my point is, in other parts of the world, they sell individual cigarettes. You know what I mean? So people can't afford to buy a pack of cigarettes. They can't afford to buy a half pack of cigarettes. They can afford to buy one cigarette at a time, right? So this is the kind of stuff that's coming to the United States, Mike. When people start seeing cigarettes sold individually at the gas stations and the convenience stores, this is not a good sign at all. Mm-hmm. So this is an example of the inflation is starting at the bottom as well, right? With examples of cigarettes and laundry detergent. So we got hyperinflation at the top, we got hyperinflation at the bottom, and it's just a matter of time before people realize what's going on and we enter what, Mises calls like the crack up boom, right? Mm-hmm. Which is just where it turns into that hyperinflationary spiral and the currency just goes poof at that point. So again, as always, I'm rambling here. So let me stop there and take it with that, Mike.
Okay, so understandable there. So when you talk about the cigarettes being sold individually, I remember when I was a kid, like growing up in the city, growing up in the middle of this, in the area where it was, a little bit rough at times. And I remember going to the store and always seeing people, just put $1 in or say, let me get 2, let me get 5. And I always wondered, the guy used to go in and open up and slide 2 or 3 underneath the window. I'm thinking like, wow, like what happened to just buying a pack? Like I never, but obviously people preferred that or couldn't afford a pack or whatever it was. But yeah, so that's an interesting story there, brought back some memories. And then as far as just the price of goods and services, especially think about this on another side of the inflation aspect or hyperinflation is just look at the cost of living on the coast in comparison to the middle of the country. And so, of course, everyone's being priced out of housing, priced out of the gas prices on the coast are extremely high. So you think about just the geographical locations of individuals and families, more expensive on the outside, a little bit less expensive in the inside. Now, when we see the middle of the country, that farming area, the agriculture area, those areas start to have issues as far as the cost. Then we got a real problem because there's going to be no way to hide it because it'll be all the way through this country. So
yes, it is awesome that you're saying these things right now because this is like exactly the thing that I've been thinking about over the past couple of months. And I don't even know why I've been thinking about this. Mm-hmm. But, we hear about like a couple of the terms that they use is called moving from high tax states to low tax states. Mm-hmm. Another thing is because of the cost of living, right? People are just fed up with this urban lifestyle when it's nothing but, in San Francisco, hypodermic needles and feces and people lying all over the streets in there, right? I mean, it's terrible. Yeah. So people are leaving these expensive coastal areas, and where are they going to be going? They're going to be looking for cheaper, quieter, more peaceful, not as chaotic places to go. But what is that going to do? That's going to bid up prices because they're taking their money and all that stuff with them. So yeah, this is what, and it's interesting too, because talking about it starts at the periphery and moves to the core. It's like it's the periphery is the coastline, west and east coast of the United States, and it's moving inwards. Yeah. So I think that's a very interesting point you bring up because, this is one of the things I wonder because as people want a quieter, more peaceful place for their children to grow up, they're going to be looking to get out of these crime-infested cities that do nothing but raise taxes on their inhabitants.
Yeah, and a major issue along with that is that the older generation, the baby boomers, they're the ones that I want to say probably for the first time, especially during my lifetime, where we'll get a chance to witness their lifestyle adjustments from like them wanting to downsize and then begin enjoying some of their older years or whatnot by selling all their portfolio and assets or whatnot. So there's going to be more selling at the same time. The people, mainstream economy won't be looking to really buy at the rate that the older generation will be selling. Therefore, I guess monetary policy is going to have to come in and bid some things up or purchase some things. And so not a transition, but and talking about what's coming in 2020, I've been thinking about that a lot myself. And so I'm hearing every central banker or majority of the central bankers, whether it be the UK governor or just Fed governors here talking about the need for now it's time for a fiscal policy now. It's time for the governments to step up to the plate. We've done all we could. I think it was last week where it talks about negative interest rates, and someone said that no, we're good right now. We can't go any further. We won't be going any higher, something like that. So now the governments have to step up. with fiscal stimulus. And so I want to get your thoughts on that. What type of fiscal policy will you see coming in the next year? Will it be the free stuff, or will, say, if Trump wins again, then what type of package will he put together?
I think it's going to be a combination of the free stuff and the tax rebates. I think it's going to be a combination of, like, I've been calling for a long time. I've been wrong this whole time, but I've been calling for cash for clunkers 2.0. Mm-hmm. So that would be in the form of a tax rebate at the end of the year. But additionally, on top of that, the government can send out stimuluses through their various, social spending programs that they have, right? It would be easy to have some sort of fiscal stimulus channeled down through, like, Social Security, the veterans, the federal employees, and all this and all that. So yeah, I think it's going to be a combination of a little bit of everything, just a little bit of pure free stuff in and of itself, a little bit of rebates to spur the economic activity, because just giving somebody money doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to spend it into the economy. Right? If the government wants to give me some money, I'm just going to go buy gold and silver with it because I know how this ends. Right. But so, if they want to actually stimulate economic activity, it has to be more than just giving people stuff, So this is why I think Clash for Clunkers is coming back, because that actually forces somebody to go out and purchase something and shift around assets. Yeah. Thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. And so that's one thing that I think we should begin preparing for, because now, as 2019 comes to an end, we see all the volatility in all the markets. We see the scrambling by central banks to try to do their last little bid to keep this thing going. So as we approach the end of Q4, end of the year, the repo action will probably get worse depending on whatever they do with that. So I expect nothing to change there, but more of the same heading into 2020. And then that's one of the times where, if we repeat kind of sort of what happened last year, December, I remember last year, the stock market was dipping several hundred points frequently. So it was a very rough time span there. And then we entered into this current year, and it's been a scramble ever since. So it was like the tremble, the earthquake in the financial system was happening in this December, and the tremors really started to pick up pace throughout spring and summer. And here we are now, fall. Something has broken. Something broke in the system officially in September when repo action came into play. Now, okay, how much longer before it becomes obvious, or there start to be real casualties from all this madness? So 2020 will be that year, in my opinion.
Yeah, and another thing that I'm thinking about is when you're talking about moving from monetary stimulus to fiscal stimulus, I still think it's going to be monetary stimulus as well, right? I mean, because the Fed's trying to play this whole, well, we got a good economy, but there's kind of a little bit of uncertainty. So we want to make sure that we're really gleaning all the data that's coming in to make sure our monetary policy is appropriate. That's what they're saying now, right? Or that they're on hold, or they're at the right spot, but that's all going to change, right? And you look at things like, obviously they're not in control of the rate on the 10-year, but that's almost at 2% again. So this has been having massive volatility, and the trend's been up over the last couple months here. Yeah. So, they're going to have to act, right? Whether there's fiscal policy or there's not fiscal policy, they're still going to have to come in and act on the monetary side. Yeah. So, it's kind of like you're passing off the buck from the fiscal policy to the monetary policy. I mean, from the monetary policy to the fiscal policy. But the fiscal policy is going to take a while for these things to have an effect. So I think that you're going to see monetary policy started right back up and in conjunction with that fiscal policy. And I probably went around in the circle on that one.
No, that's a real, because I did I think it was a couple of weeks ago, a month or two ago, I did like a little video in reference to how the timing of when the recessions are announced and when they're felt. And so it has to do with the inversion of the yield curve. And so a lot of people, primarily, because I think the professor at Duke, who was the first one to discover it and lay out all the framework for how it's been something that's been reliable for the last couple of decades, he was saying that we're not out of the water yet, even though the yield curve had uninverted. And so it was starting to look like, okay, things, we might be good with no recession. But then he's like, hold on, because it's not when it really inverts, it's when it inverts and then it goes out of that. And when it goes back into the positive territory, that's when there's a problem. And so looking at the last several recessions when there were a yield curve inversion, and the time frame between it going negative to reaching back positive was usually, it was like 6 to 9 months usually, where it showed up on the actual, the Federal Reserve little graph there. And then it was a big gray bar will show up. And so my thought is now the yield curve inversion happened earlier in this year here. So technically speaking, if those measurements that I came up with, of course I'm no PhD economist, but just using common sense, if I was looking at those time frames there, 6 to 9 months, I think April, May, if I'm not mistaken, was the first time I heard about the yield curve inversions, or around that time frame. So that puts us 6 to 9 months, December, January-ish, to where we should expect a great bar if they allowed it to happen in a normal way and announced it or whatever. And so technically speaking, I'm thinking beginning of 2020 will be that time frame where I'm going to put a great bar on my graph. And so to make it official, I'll share my opinions on why I think that's the case. But the recession is basically already underway, is what I'm getting at. And so now it's a matter of knowing it's underway. They're going to do everything they can to prop this thing up. But then what will you do personally? If you know we're in a recession, what will you do differently? So that plays into a lot of things that people should begin taking serious as we approach 2020, especially when we get there, because more layoffs and more financial chaos, and then more all the stuff that goes along with that. So
yes, great points. And more layoffs, more financial chaos. Like a few weeks ago, we were reporting that Sears was closing 100 stores. And then just last year, we were reporting they announced like another 96 on top of that or something like that. So this stuff is, in fact, picking up speed.
Yeah. And watch this. For all those closures, I would be willing to guess, I don't know, but I would be willing to guess that the employees there were not giving a heads up. Like, I'm assuming their managers which may not have known themselves, were not given a 30-day, 60-day notice. More than likely, hopefully they were, but they were not told that, hey, we're having issues, we're closing down, next week you have to find another job. I mean, that's how, as things speed up, I'm anticipating there being more people caught off guard, even more so, because in my personal opinion, once again, your employee they don't really owe you, they don't have an obligation to really concern themselves with your lives as opposed to the business. So it's going to be very cutthroat in the next year, especially if not already. So a lot of people, I'm imagining, are not happy with the way they've been treated in the workforce. So
yeah, I would agree with that too. And it speaks to the direness of the situation because we're coming up on peak holiday shopping season. So they're pulling the plugs on these stores right now, right? So they're like not even looking for this one last holiday shopping season. Like that's how far we've gone past the point of no return. Whereas it's like you just can't do enough for the patient anymore. The patient cannot be revived, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, man, this is So once again, I'm glad you mentioned holiday season, because right now is that time frame, and then we got was a Black Friday coming up in a couple of weeks or 2 weeks or whatever that is. So we'll see what the sales will result in. And of course, they're gonna. I think last year they were talking about like online sales was all-time high, and they painted this real positive picture. Then in January, February, I saw an article saying, after looking at the numbers now, it looks like things were not as good in the retail stores. Online did good, but retail stores really suffered. And okay,
exactly.
Sure.
And you know what? This is just a little theory of mine about something I've been thinking about, but I don't think that the sales are going to be as good this year, because think about this, right? You were just bringing up a great point about the lag time, right? When these things happen and these things get set in motion, there's a lag time of several months.
Yeah.
So think about it in regards to the trade war and the tariffs and all this and all that, right? There's been a lag time with that, right? So we've now gone through a couple different seasons. So we're going to start to see that worked into pricing, I think, come this holiday shopping season. And I think people are going to be disappointed. Sure, Walmart's going to have the one-offs, but it's just not going to be across the board crazy stuff on sale and everything's just at a fire sale, dirt cheap, bargain basement prices. I think it's going to start to look different this year because of that lag time, and specifically in relation because of the consequence of the trade war.
That trade war situation, or I'm gonna stop calling it a trade war. I'm calling it a tax war, because it's ultimately a tax on the people. So I've had people reach out to me and tell me about how, by them doing import and exporting business or whatnot, their cost is going up. They just pass it on. So technically speaking, it's just an increase in goods and services to the people. So it's not really a war, because Trump and Xi can go back and forth talking and all this and whatever. But in reality, the people in the economy are the ones that actually are being impacted by this. So it's a war against the people and taxation.
Yeah. I was thinking about this too the other day, because every once in a while, like once in a blue moon, like not very often, very, very infrequently, my wife and I will sit down over dinner and have a glass of wine. Right now, I'm cheap, right? Don't tell anybody I'm pretty cheap, but I'm cheap, right? So there's this, I don't even know the brand. It's called like Lucky Duck or Lucky Duckling or something like that. But there's like this brand of wine, right? And it's like super cheap, but it's like good tasting. It's quality. You can't taste the difference. And they've actually done like blind taste tests where they like put wine testers around and they have like, really expensive stuff and really cheap stuff. And they're like saying, oh, this is really good. And it's really cheap stuff.
Yeah.
Here's my point with that. This wine that we opened this bottle, I was looking at it, I was like, oh, that's from Chile. And then I immediately started thinking, well, wait a second. This is cheap wine, but it's from Chile. And there's a lot of problems going on in Chile, and there's a trade war. What's going to happen the next time? Are there going to be these import-export flows of the wine from Chile? Because I remember you talking about your business friends down there were having a few problems.
Yeah.
So these are just some things to think about. And then what does that do? That puts upward pressure on prices in general, right? Because if that Chilean wine's a little bit more expensive, then the other person at the margin can raise their prices ever so much incrementally. Right. So those are just some random thoughts that I had there. But, these are examples that we see in the real world of how these fiscal and monetary policies play out and how it is that they can actually affect a person at an individual level.
Right. And here's what it boils down to for me personally, as far as just how we've conducted our financial matters in general. So our cost of our expenditures, what we choose to spend our funds on these days moving forward, will change automatically, whether it's due to the price of goods and services going up or it's because we deliberately take the time to say, hey, I know things are not going well. I hear all this talk about recession. Therefore, things might get a little bit tight depending on where I'm at financially, whatever. So let me start making the changes now for myself by cutting back on some things, readjusting myself, getting things that I know will appreciate in time and all those type of things. So I think, heading into 2020, that's going to be a part of my motto of encouraging people to initiate the change for themselves as opposed to waiting on it to happen to them, because you don't know where it's going to come from or what it's going to look like. But then you can kind of take small incremental steps to prepare for whatever preparation means these days. I don't know, but you can prepare for yourself by just doing something different. And I think you'll be less dependent upon the system itself and won't be subject to being a casualty of it because you have already made some adjustments in your life, whatever that might be for you. So,
yeah. Those are all great points. That's all well said. Let me see. Oh, I was just going over because I wanted to make sure I hit all of the points that I wanted to make about the inflation and the hyperinflation. But just the one last point about the crab, would we consider that asset price inflation? Right? Because a restaurant person bought this, right, to serve in the restaurant. So is that $46,000 crab an asset, or is it just a purchase of something? Right? So that's a good point there, because what we have been talking about this whole time that all of the apologists say is, well, there's inflation, but it's asset price inflation, but not anymore. Now it's crossed the line.
Yeah. So good point. I'm reading this comment here. I'm going to share my thoughts on that because that's one thing I haven't heard in a minute. But asset, it's not. I mean, if you're going to consume it, I imagine it's just an individual with more than enough funds wanted to just put his name in the paper or probably just do something just because he probably got a couple extra dollars in his pocket. It was like, here you go, 46,000 of them. Do what you do. Let me go ahead and just make the news real quick. So I don't know, but we'll see. But definitely that, I don't know the lifespan of that crab, but definitely it's not going to be around 10, or they probably do live long. I don't know. But will it appreciate is a question.
Yeah.
Will he get bigger? Will he get bigger and, we get a little meatier and a little juicier? So
yeah, the innards will get even more creamy, whatever that means. I don't even want to know what that means.
Now, so as always, so once again, we're going back and forth, forgetting that we're being watched by, what looks like almost 300 people. So I appreciate everybody for chiming in and listening to us go back and forth. But we want to include you in. So it looks like I missed a call because I was ranting, so I apologize. So highlight at Silver Doctor so it'll stand out, and we'll definitely address it. Or call in, and in the midst of our talking, we'll stop ranting, and we'll get to your call. But Paul, here's a great comment here that I think about the Chilean wine. It says Chilean wine has a Fukushima light source, reasons for its frugal price. And I haven't heard the word Fukushima in quite some time. And so for those that may not be aware, Fukushima was the nuclear reactor in Japan that sprung a leak and had major problems 3, 4, 5 years ago. To this day, still leaking, I'm sure. And all that radiation is going right into the ocean. Therefore, everything in the ocean is contaminated. Therefore, the coastal lines of every region has nuclear waste on it. And so the idea that he said that the rainwater, the rain, is why those grapes were so cheap because
Yeah.
they're nuclear.
Yeah, they were finding, and I can't remember exactly where I saw this, but this was years ago, right? They were finding Fukushima radiation in oranges in Florida, right? So it had already worked itself through, like, the photosynthesis process to actually end up inside the orange itself. And if you go down that rabbit hole, that's a scary rabbit hole to go down, because that's almost like an extinction level event right there.
Yeah, and so that's one thing where that's a major story that will impact the planet. Nevertheless, every human being between, I mean, it's probably I mean, by now it's had more than enough time, and I don't know if they contained it, but I just pulled up a little article here, just typing in Fukushima, and so this one here says Fukushima's radioactive farmland to become clean energy hub, powering the region and Tokyo metropolitan area. So it looks like that area that was radioactive, they're going to put solar panels on it now to try to turn that into a good story, saying that we're going to create energy now and it's going to be solar. But once again, you got a lot of people who have been impacted by this. And so I remember seeing stories about off the coast of Hawaii, like whales were washing up, all these creatures washing up on shore. And once again, you don't hear much about it on mainstream news. But, Mr. Haddow, we have a call.
Okay.
Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from? Hello?
Hello?
Hi there. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Dan calling from Miami.
Dan from Miami. How you doing, my friend? What's on your mind this afternoon?
I wanted to ask you guys, do you guys know anything about the shoot up in the silver price in Kitco, that it went up from like $23 and then it shot right back down?
I don't know, but we can have Mr. Haddow answer that off the phone so you can hear him if you don't have any other questions.
Oh no, and also beyond that, more into politics. What do you guys think about conservative Inc. versus the Groyper or the reactionary conservative movement?
Good stuff there, Mr. Paul Haddow. We can touch on that as well. So those are two questions there.
Yeah.
All right, appreciate you, my friend. We'll answer off air so you can hear Paul's thoughts because you won't be able to hear him right now. Thanks for calling. Good stuff there. Silver and then the conservative movement. He mentioned some conservative Inc., which I'm not familiar with, but we'll find out about it. Go ahead. Share your thoughts, my friend.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, so I'm glad that he called in and brought that up. This is a question that we get oftentimes. Talking about silver here, and it's the same for gold. Actually, all the precious metals, really. The question that we get oftentimes, and this relates to what happened last night, the question that we get oftentimes is, why is the price here different than the price there, right? So last night, and we got a few emails actually about this, like a couple last night and a couple this morning, because last night, and I don't think it's there anymore, but on Kitco's website, like silver shot up to, I think it was $23.50 for the silver price. So it's just like, instead of a flash crash, it was a flash spike, like over the course of a minute, and then it went right back down. Here's the things to think about, right? I do not put a whole lot of faith in one site's price over another, and there's several reasons why, okay? First of all, we don't know how Kitco is calculating their price, right? Are they using, something based off of the LBMA? Are they using something based off of COMEX pricing? What kind of contract are they looking at? That's number one. Number two, I think that they sell gold and silver at Kitco. Do they have some sort of buffer built in there where it's always a little bit higher or it's a little bit lower? That's point number two. Point number three, how often are the prices resyncing on their website? So we don't know that. So that's point number three. So my point is, Kitco is the only place that I saw that spike, right? Because I immediately went to my trading platform, didn't see it. Immediately went to Bloomberg, didn't see it. Immediately went to investing.com, didn't see it. So that I'm not concerned about. It's something that's quirky with the way Kitco calculates the price. Because that's the other thing, right? There's also the bid. There's a few different prices, right? There's the bid, there's the ask, there's the last, right? So, it depends what the price is that they're getting, and then what they do with that price before it's displayed on the website. So me personally, I'm not really concerned about the price spike. I don't know what happened, but I did not see it anywhere else. I would think of it as just something weird with however their system is. Does any of that make sense, Mike?
Yeah, it does. It does. So you can't depend upon one single source to get the price these days, especially as there's going to be more untrusted and unreliable mechanism and actors at play that will probably not be able to give you the true figure somehow, some way. I don't know how to pay out, but because there's so many different sources for pricing things nowadays. I personally, as I always reference, don't pay attention to prices much, apart from the fact when it goes down and it gets a little bit cheaper, then I know that's a great opportunity. So, I this past weekend I saw that the price was down, I think 30 cents, 40 cents, or something like that from Friday, and I tweeted out, hey, good opportunity to save 40 cents if you want to get physical. So hopefully people took advantage of that. But other than that, and once again, it's a race to the end. Either you got it or you don't. Either you're heavy or you're light. Either way, however you play it. Paper price of it's going to fluctuate. It's going to be a couple cents here, a dollar here, until it's actually noticeable where it's in the hundreds or in the thousands. Then everything else to me is a small play in this matter. So
and it's approximate, right? Obviously, if you're a trader or something like this, then that's a big deal, right? I don't know how they would handle it, right? Like I don't even know how they would handle that, because what happens if the price plummets on the same token, right? And instead of shooting up by $8 in 1 minute, it drops by $8 in 1 minute, So if the price goes from $16 to $8 and half dollar goes in there and buys every single Silver Eagle and Maple Leaf that they got, they really want to send it to me? I don't think so. They're probably going to cancel out that order, right?
Yeah, right.
So getting like approximate, right? And the approximate prices. I don't want to make it sound like I'm siding on the side of like, oh, that was just some sort of fluke. There could have been something going on, but I think that we shouldn't read too much into any one particular place and just get the overall sense of the market, right? Because it wasn't in conjunction with a dollar spike or something else like that, or a dollar plummet for that matter. I think it was just silver, and I don't remember if it was any of the other metals. I specifically think it was only silver, and it was that happened last night.
Okay, sounds good. And so one last thought here on, I guess, silver gold ratio. So we got to answer his question on. So let's touch on a conservative matter. And so I'm not sure if he listed one or two different actual movements or not, but share your thoughts on the conservative movement, the progressive movement, all the liberal movement. I mean, so many movements now. And so is this more of a sign of a divide to you, or is there some type of grassroots movement underneath the surface where people are starting to wake up and become more proactive, become more politically involved?
I don't think people are waking up and becoming more politically involved, because I think as we descend into the third world, people are going to have to worry about keeping themselves and their families fed and safe and secure and clothed and all of these things. I think that it's more of a divide and conquer strategy. It's weird because we're going from extreme to extreme to extreme. If President Trump loses, we're going to get some sort of extreme to the left, right? Is what it sounds like, and what it certainly seems like. My whole point with any of this political stuff, right? I think my point. My point, I'm not anti-government. People think that I'm not anti-government at all, right? It's a republic. It's supposed to be a limited government in a sense that, I think the government can only ever do one of two things. The government can get in the way, or it can get out of the way. Because, I hate to say it, but like within these certain groups, like within liberals, well, they're loving of liberals, but only if it's the liberal types of things that they like, right? So there's even exclusion within the groups. So I think this is all part of this divide and conquer strategy. As far as actual conservative movements, I don't have any specifics because I'm just not involved in politics like that. So I wish I could answer the question better.
Yeah. So I pulled up an article here, just typed in grassroots movement, conservative movement. So here's an article a couple weeks old. And so I didn't have a chance to go through it, but I'm also the same school of thought that you are, as far as just this, back and forth, create as much static as you can in the middle, so that people can't really say, okay, I'm going this way, I'm going that way. It's more so like, okay, what's hot for this week? What political figure is saying some good things that sounds good to me, so that I can now pay attention to them. While President Trump tweets, the economy is doing great. We got all-time highs over here. So let me go back over here because I am actually doing better financially now. But so I saw something about President Trump mentioned about the African-American community. He was saying that, something about being the best president for the African-American community. And I'm thinking like, how do you actually measure that? Like what do you, so I don't know what his measuring stick is these days, but because I'm questioning, exactly with him tweeting the economy is so good and me knowing it's not, like, okay, I can't really rely upon your sources because I don't think the inner city community is really feeling your tax advantages. So, but anyway, so so I'm of the mindset they're both same school, different thoughts, giving you some stuff to keep you confused. But ultimately, whether it's left or right, we know how the story ends, I believe. So, Now it's going to be a matter of, okay, what happens once the story ends? That's where we don't know. So, yeah. But hopefully that was a little bit of information towards that question. So once again, we don't dive too deep into the political realms because we don't really have much confidence in it, in a sense, to really pay attention to it. Because I mean, to me, it's all static in one ear and out the other. So, but yeah. So hopefully that was of some type of help. But on another note, as always, if you got any thoughts or questions, feel free to call in. We'd love to get your thoughts or whatnot. And if we're wrong, feel free to tell us we're wrong. I'm okay with that as well. So we have Sam Music. I don't know. I'm not pronounce that. Says on gold's chart RS, silver gold ratio went to 62 to 1 last night, as well as with no change in prices.
Oh.
And so gold charts RS, I don't really follow that much, but once again, another source giving information that may not have been congruent with everybody else.
So that's the question, right? I mean, what I would naturally be thinking of, his name is Nick Laird, I think is his last name. I can't remember exactly his last name. But, so is the gold to silver ratio feeding off of Kitco in some way, right? Because that's the only way that I could explain that, is that whatever he's using to create that gold to silver ratio on gold charts or us. And I'm assuming that he's got, it on a tick by tick, minute by minute basis. So that would lead me to believe that somehow that gold to silver ratio on that website is tied in with Kitco pricing. Because, when I look at my gold to silver ratio this morning, I didn't see anything like that. And I just use stockcharts.com when I set that up. So, it could be tied into the Kitco on there. And that's what would explain it to me. Such a severe drop, right? All of a sudden, because that's what we would be talking about, right? A shoot up in the price of silver is a drop in the gold to silver ratio.
Good stuff there. All right, so let's check back in the chat and see if there's anything we have missed thus far. So Albert says, if China doesn't release any of its mined gold, how do gold pandas end up on U.S. shores? That's a good one. Mr. Haddock, you got any thoughts on that one? I don't know.
That is a good question. I mean, just to participate in, because, think about it, right? Like bullion coins by the various governments is like one of the few things that's actually profitable for governments, right? So, what were we talking about last week? We were talking about those really beautiful giraffe coins, right? Yeah. And what is that? That's, I'm sure, right? I don't know how this works, but I'm sure that there's some sort of royalty, right? That's going to be paid to the Republic of Congo in one way or another, right? There has to be. So in the same, and obviously it's going to be paid to them because it's not minted in Congo. You see what I'm saying? But like with China, right? They control the minting of those pandas. So, if you were in the business of making money, why wouldn't you make money? So that's my point with that, with the Chinese offering the gold pandas, is that, it's minimal to begin with. And then secondly, it's a money-making venture for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so as just talking about government issued, and so I typed in just the United States Mint. And so, one of my things that I've always talked about is money comes from the mint, debt comes from central banks. So, the United States Mint is the issuer and was given the authority to issue and to coin money, 1792-ish or before that or whatever, according to the Coinage Act of 1792. And so I think about the only place that true value is given off from the government happens to be this entity here, which is a part of the government, United States Mint. And so this is our only true source of real money. So I'm looking at this, Silver Eagle right here, 2019 edition, and it just looks so pretty. It's just a pretty coin itself. And so I'm thinking this is the only true place where people can go and acquire assets that, will definitely help them escape or withstand some of the chaos that's going on. Not escape, but withstand from a financial standpoint only. But yet, the United States Mint, that's where money comes from. But a lot of people, unfortunately, don't know that because all they know is paper notes that says Federal Reserve on top of it. And then they think that that's, what is the beginning and end of their financial lives. So, yeah, the goal is to get more people towards, the United States Mints and some of their coins. So,
yeah. And, I've mentioned this before, but let me just mention this for anybody who has maybe not heard me say this before, but I call it premium creep. And this is just about like the way the pricing is right now, because prices have been beat down. We've been in this nasty correction. Silver's down over 13% since early September. Yeah. Right. So my point is, some people might be thinking, is now a good time to purchase silver, or is it going down to 1575 or something like that?
Yeah.
Here's my point. If a person is looking to buy silver and they're not sure whether now is a good time or not, the lower that prices go, the more risk there is for premium creep. And what premium creep is that, let's say you're trying to wait for silver to drop 25 cents in price, right? Well, if dealers got 49 cents off of generic rounds, if too many people buy it up and then they have to resupply it, that actually has to come to them, right? They have to be able to get it out of somebody's hand to be able to keep supplying the market, right? These are actual market forces in the bullion industry. So what would happen is if the dealer has to pay more for it to replenish that supply, premiums are going to go up. So if somebody's waiting for silver to drop 25 cents more before they buy silver, there's a risk they actually end up paying more for it because of premium creep, right? The other example is the 90%, right? Which we showed, which the premiums on 90% can actually skyrocket as they did in September of 2015, just 4 years ago. So I just wanted to throw in premium creep there, because another thing is people are like, well, is now a good time to buy because it's falling, or should I wait any longer? You're getting at that point now where if it starts going much lower, we're going to start seeing premium creep.
Yeah. So the question would then be, like, what are you waiting on? Like, no matter what, it's either you have it or you don't. Why run the risk of, missing out on the current price, anticipating and hoping for a lower price, running the risk of a much higher price, if that makes sense. So, I mean, if you know the value of it, what are you waiting on? Because it's a race against time of the banking model and all that stuff, trying to continue to keep this thing afloat while everyone knows we're heading towards something that is going to be very chaotic and a problem for everybody. Limit your risk and avoid the pain. Just do what you got to do now if you believe that's going to be an option for you. So. Yeah, just my thoughts.
Yes,
there.
and week in and week out, we talk about inflation, we talk about currency debasement, we talk about money printing, and out of all of this stuff that's going on, silver's going down in price. It's like, my goodness, it's something that's so precious. Not even everybody in the world could have an ounce if they wanted one.
Yeah, but yeah, once again, for those that realize the value of it, hey, it's a great it's an opportunity. So amongst all this chaos is opportunity, and so I gotta look at it from both ways. Okay, if there's a problem here, there's an opportunity over here somewhere. So let me find out how I can participate in this and not be a victim of it ultimately. So, yeah.
Yeah, because, they're going to be moving until the very end with this fiat currency system. And what that means is just constant pressure until they can't keep the pressure on the metals anymore, And we talk about, like, they're not going to willingly do this. And I'm glad that other people are talking about this too. Like, we featured this video from Chris Martinson's Peak Prosperity interviewing Grant Williams, where he says, central banks are not going to go back to a gold standard willingly. And that's what we say week in and week out, right? There's going to be some sort of crisis, and they're not going to do it until they're forced to do it. So we know how it ends. It always ends this way. So if they're going to keep smashing until the very end, well, that's just we're able to, build up our ammunition, all the better.
Now, speaking of which, where we're heading, here's a great article here that I think people can kind of understand. Let me go ahead and pop this up. And so this is kind of like not by surprise. And so this is a article I just pulled not long ago of Altcoin Buzz, and it says cryptocurrency frenzy. Why are governments jumping onto the crypto blockchain train? And so are you surprised that was going to happen? Or was it a deliberate setup so that now everybody has a little bit of excitement primarily about the adoption aspect? And so is it a surprise that governments now are getting in and they're becoming more proactive on announcing projects and whatnot? And so this is a very interesting article. It's a great question because, once again, I believe it's all by design. And so I want to say over the weekend, let me pull this up as well. What was it? I think it's the dinar, the Iraqi dinar, or some dinar is the first government to announce a cryptocurrency, call it cryptocurrency, but it's not, but a centralized blockchain-based coin that will be in circulation. So along with China doing theirs and UK calling for theirs, you think the Federal Reserve don't have something in plan? You better think again. So this is what's going on, man. But, since you mentioned about what's coming, I thought about, sharing this article because it's very timely.
Yeah. And, it's all races against time, right? Because, are they going to be able to do it when the time comes, because we're entering crisis. Because when we enter this crack up boom, it's going to go a lot faster than people realize that it's going to go. I really think that that'll be the case.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long before people realize that their money is rapidly losing value, and we see this. Look at Venezuela, right? We saw what happened there, and it was basically over the course of a year, where that 1 year, 2017, really just was almost like the death knell. For the Bolivar there.
Now, so for people that follow the cryptocurrency space, which I try to stay up to speed just so I can know what's happening. And so because the banks aren't paying any interest anymore, and they themselves are getting into tokens or coins or whatever for their particular bank, and so you have the middlemen, exchanges, now getting into the lending and the interest-bearing opportunities for depositors. So now with those stable coins that are backed by the Federal Reserve dollar, which is not stable, but okay. And so they're now offering interest on you parking your coins on their platforms, and they're paying extremely high returns on parking your coins there, to where it's becoming, I guess, a little bit more popular. Because if you're sitting on a large amount of coins, instead of just sitting on them and them not doing anything, not working for you, you can put them on one of these exchanges or institutions, and they'll promise you 6%, or I just saw an ad here about up to 12%. And so that's another lure and enticement for people to say, okay, I got money in the bank, I'm losing there, let me go ahead and take that out, put it over here in these coins, and I'll earn some more coins on top of it. So that will be a very favorable move for a lot of people as an opportunity to earn in 2020 and beyond. What are your thoughts on that?
I think of like Bitfinex or BitMEX or whatever it was called back in 2016, where they had that hack, and the hacks happen all the time, right? What did they do? Everybody who had money on that exchange lot took a 30% haircut, right? So whatever it was, even if your wallet was uninfected, you got a 30% haircut on that. So I think of a couple things. I think of things that are vulnerable to a hack and just being flat out stolen. How are you going to get that back? That's number one. Number two, government can just shut it down anytime they want, deem that it's an illegal operation. So, and then number three, just an unintended consequence. Are people going to start saying, wait a second, why aren't we getting interest in the banks anymore? So that could actually backfire in that sense when it comes to the banks in and of themselves.
So the banks going to have to address that, because if people start, if this adoption for cryptos pick up like it will, it's by default, it's going to pick up because of all the chaos happening. It has to pick up because it's getting labeled as a gateway out. But banks are going to start losing funds because depositors are going to start pulling to put it over here. Or, watch this, by 2020 summertime, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, one of them other ones, going to offer a cryptocurrency exchange platform, storing your currency, will give you 8%. So just transfer your deposits right over to the stable coin, the JP Morgan coin, and you'll earn 7%. And so guess what? Who controls that? Who runs that? Who has a say-so in that? Who can track where you're going with your funds? It's coming, watch.
Yeah, that's a good prediction. It's coming. And, what are they doing with that? Are they even keeping them there? Are they rehypothecating that Bitcoin? And it's like, where does it end,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not good at all. So that's a scary prediction you got there, Mike. We'll see.
But it's one of the things where it just seems like it flows so smoothly. That's why it's like, I'm not very confident, but it's one of the things where it just seems like that's kind of where things are headed. Just pay attention to the trend. Like, it's not a bad thing, because it's been deliberately designed for that, and it's a part of the push to take us that way, which is we're going that way anyway. But it's one of the things like, how fast do you want it? Do you want it like next year, 2 years, or 10 years from now, to where it gives you a little bit more time to continue to get your weight up and stuff like that? So.
Yeah. A lot of people think I'm anti-blockchain and cryptocurrency, and I'm not, right? I'm not that at all. I just wanted to throw that out there before people say, oh, Paul, he's a Bitcoin hater. So, but anyway, Mike, speaking of the chaos, Hong Kong is back in the news again all of a sudden. And it's like South African type stuff that they're actually talking about in the mainstream media. I saw this on Reuters. I saw this on CNN. I saw this on Fox. Like, people are getting set on fire now, and people are like showing videos of people getting shot point blank in the chest. I mean, it's pretty bad stuff. So something is going on there, and it's popping off again. And people like Kyle Bass and Jim Rickers and all this, they're all like, China, we need to stick it to them. Something major is going on. And I'm starting to think that they're trying to take down the financial system in Hong Kong to kind of like retard China's growth, right, as much as they can, because ultimately, who's got to clean up that mess? right? China does, because it's a semi-autonomous place. So if we destroy and wreck that financial system, that retards China's ascension, right, on the global stage, on as a power player.
Yeah.
So this is just something to think about, because all of a sudden, again, after we hadn't heard about it in a while, Hong Kong's right back in it. Last week was a whole bunch of trade war optimism, but this week is starting out to be something that's very interesting. Then another thing that is kind of making news today, but not really. Did you see this? But the Bolivian president literally just resigned, right? And, Secretary Mike Pompeo is out there and he's like, oh, this is great. We fully support, do they not understand that this is like soft regime change, right?
Yeah.
Like they probably, gave this guy some good option that he could not turn down.
And apparently the military are the ones that approach him and say, hey, we're going to give you an option. We'll let you know now. We'll walk you out to your car if you choose to resign. But if you don't, you're not going to walk out this house type of ordeal. And I saw that Mexico offered him and his staff or whatnot asylum or whatnot. And so here's the thing. You remove a guy who's been in power for quite some time now. Clearly there's going to be some type of puppet probably put in play. Or the military will be like, hey, we don't need a puppet. Like whoever the military chief is, he might say, no, I can do this same job. Let me go ahead and do this job. And here you go. We're going to have another issue of the military taking over. And absolute power corrupts. And then all the problems with that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be the United States, though. I think it's going to be a puppet that's going to be installed there. I don't think it's going to be the military on its own. I think that this is heavily with the footprint of the United States. But it just goes to show that, none of this chaos has subsided, and it's just only getting worse, and in some places it's super violent, and in some places it's not quite as violent. But I mean, still, if your president resigns, that's like a huge thing, right? I mean, what would happen if Trump resigned? I mean, that's a huge thing. So, it's not going either way, whether it's peaceful or not, the end result is not going to be good for the Bolivian people.
Yeah, I do agree. And it's going to be more chaos because they were unhappy with what they had. They don't know what's coming or what's been set up, what they're being set up for. And I think that whole region right now is about to go through a real, Go ahead.
Maneco64 said a lot of lithium in Bolivia, so there you go, right? And people come to me and they're like, "Oh, half all you're wrong. It's not about oil." What was President Trump saying over and over and over again about Syria? We've secured the oil. We're going to start all this protection of the oil. We've got the oil. We're going to use the oil for. He didn't say that, but I think it was Lindsey Graham. Like, we need to use the oil to fund our military exercises for defending Syria or something crazy like that. So, that's what these things are about. They're about, pillaging and plundering the national resources. And that's sad, right?
And where's all the wealth at? It's in the ground in those countries that, are very, the mountainous regions. Like, that region that like the was it Andes Mountains, I think, to go up and down that coast there. Beautiful, man, beautiful. It's untapped, and so who's going to go down and tap it? Private interests, the too big to fail, and the elite groups and the oligarchs and all those people. So they're gonna get richer and all this. So hopefully we can, realize what's coming, take advantage of it, do the best we can, and prepare ourselves. So yeah, it is what it is, man. But hey, we're approaching almost an hour point. So you ready to get ready to dial back a little bit?
Yep, let's get ready to dial it back here, Mike.
All right. So with that being the case, everybody, any last thoughts? Anybody want to pop out some at Silver Doctors to highlight it, and we'll talk about it. If not, we're going to get ready to call it in a day. And so before we do, what's on your radar for this week? What's happening in the news? Anything coming up? Any meetings? Anything that I may not be aware of? That something to keep an eye on? That you haven't mentioned yet?
There's a lot going on this week, and I think that today is a little bit weird, right? Because it's Veterans Day, and on the one hand, it's a federal holiday, but on the other hand, markets are open, and like school is in session. And I didn't even get to my Veterans Day rant. I'll save that for next year, Mike. We'll do my Veterans Day rant next year. But after today, there are a lot of important events that are coming up, right? We're getting the producer price index on Wednesday. Powell's speaking before Congress on Wednesday. We got retail sales, and we got CPI is Wednesday and PPI is Thursday. Anyway, we got a whole bunch of important statistics, right? The important stuff that the Fed's looking at because they're data dependent all of a sudden again. In addition to Powell, right? So I'm looking for a lot of market prep work on Wednesday. So this is definitely going to be an exciting week. And right now it looks like the dominant theme is the chaos is coming back again. And they started the week hard and heavy in the mainstream media with Hong Kong. So that'll be something to watch. In the markets, I'm just looking for these incoming statistics to see what it's showing, even though I don't trust the numbers anyway.
Yeah, good stuff. So low blood pressure says, Paul, he said, do you miss Chico's tacos?
Chico's tacos.
Oh man, someone says, Roy Boy says, time to start stacking acres. Yeah, and so there's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of untapped land out there, and now it's a matter of getting a hold of your own little plot of land and developing it for yourself. And so my wife is, she's wanting to get some chickens and all types of stuff. I'm like, you don't know nothing about farming, but you want to get some chickens. Like, come on now. But anyway, so that's going to be a part of our future because she wants
everybody's got to learn, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's going to follow me. And I'm not really interested in no chickens. I like to eat chicken, though, but I don't know how to take care of them. Go ahead.
We tried these, we try to do like tomatoes and cucumbers and jalapenos and stuff like that. We're going to start it again next year because we were renting the past couple years. But my point is, if you ever eat like a cucumber picked from the garden and eat it that same day, like, I mean, you will never want to buy another cucumber in the grocery store again. It is that good. It is that healthy, right? It's got kissed by God. It's got the sun. It's got the rain on it. I mean, it's just delicious tasting.
Yeah.
So, in addition to helping become self-sufficient, it's actually like better quality and just, I mean, go for it, Mike. Buy some chickens and send me some eggs because I want that fresh stuff too.
I'll think about it, Mr. Half Dollar. But all right, people, with that being the case, it's been great hanging out. And other than that, we back on Wednesday, same time, same place. Could have some interviews this week coming up, so definitely stay tuned. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button with the thumbs up so that you be notified, hopefully. Because another thing, in 2020, expect less notification, less support from the owner of this platform, which you guys know who they are. So definitely, we're going to try to have to find new ways to make sure you guys are informed because there's going to be more news worth talking about that they're going to make sure they don't want you to find out. So we got to figure out how to work that out. But other than that, if you've enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up. Wednesday, be back here same time, same place. And other than that, as always, social media aspects for Mr. Half Dollar and myself is in the description. Connect with us on social media and stay up to date with what's going on with us. So other than that, be blessed, be safe. See you later.